Oh, my little boy, my little girl, you're always in the background, right? Yeah, you deserve it. And you shut up. Are you ready for the second lesson? Okay, so where were we? Oh yes, we were freezing in the cold lands of Jutland and southern Scandinavia, where the story begins.
No, Fabio, the story had already begun a long time before that.
Rexy, I don't care about you or other overweight lizards. We're talking about the Germanic peoples and their culture. We can imagine there were tribes speaking different variants of the same language, which we call today Proto-Germanic, or PGMC if you are too lazy to write that long word. They could understand each other very well at that time. That's why we talk in general about Proto-Germanic language and not about the Proto-Germanic languages. In addition to this, we don't know exactly what kind of differences there were among the variants. Therefore, we will consider Germanic or Proto-Germanic as a single language. There's one more thing we have to say. The two words Germanic and Proto-Germanic don't have the same meaning. Proto means first in Greek, so it refers to the earliest stage of the language, while Germanic is a wider term. But since the differences between the early stage and the later stages of this language are not so clear like they are for other languages, and moreover, as we don't have time to go too deep into details because life is short, we will use Proto-Germanic and Germanic as synonyms, unless clearly specified. What we know is that in a certain period of the history, these peoples split into several groups. And Proto-Germanic started developing differently in each of them, while these were moving to other places in Europe, where they came into contact with other cultures. Most scholars think that the basis of today's situation can be roughly described as a three-way partition of the original group into North Germanic, West Germanic, and East Germanic. Things are much more complex than that, I know, but I can read in your eyes a desperate need for simplification. It looks like the first ones who decided to leave the original location were those of the East Germanic branch, who moved southeastwards. Before settling in different areas of Eastern Europe, they probably lived between River Elbe and River Vistula. Okay, if you don't know about geography, let's say between here and here. And the most famous among these people were Goths, Burgundians, and Vandals. That East Germanic peoples used to live in that area is proven by the presence of place names like Gotland and Gdansk, which comes from Gotis Kanza. There's a little problem with this group of languages. They're extinct.
Oh, like me!
Yes, Rexy, with a few differences. You starved to death after an asteroid hit the planet because you didn't know how to order in a restaurant. You loser. Well, these languages didn't really die out. We can say that they were slowly absorbed by languages of other origins. It was a love fusion, let's say a hug that ended up in one language devouring the other, like praying mantises. The only language of this branch that we can actually study is Gothic. The most important document in this language is a Bible. Yeah, at that time religion was an obsession. But thank God we have religious documents. We already know the contents, so the translation is a breeze. But how did they write this book? You have to know that in ancient times the Germanic peoples didn't have a real writing system. Well, they did, and it is called runic alphabet, but first, the letters were used more with a magic symbolic function than as a writing system. Second, these symbols had a sharp, angular shape, made to be carved on rocks, and they were not suitable for handwriting on a smooth surface like parchment or paper. Third, the runic letters were traditionally connected rather to heathen beliefs than to Christian ones. And their merciful Almighty God didn't deserve to be humiliated with those wild lines. It's like going to a church and finding information in Comic Sans. Because of these reasons, Ulfilas, the Gothic bishop who translated the Bible into his own language, Gothic, during the 4th century AD, decided to devise a new alphabet, drawing inspiration mostly from the Greek alphabet, plus an arrow and a mourning ribbon. This translation is very, very important, as Gothic is considered to be one of the most conservative Germanic languages. That's why I decided to graduate with a dissertation about this language 16 years ago. No way, 16 years! Oh, I'm getting old. I also went to Uppsala in Sweden to see the Codex Argenteus, the most precious manuscript containing this text. Actually, it was forbidden to take a picture. But who cares? I'm Italian. People thought all East Germanic languages had disappeared during the Middle Ages, when suddenly, in the 18th century, the Flemish ambassador in Constantinople went to Crimea and...
What the hell? Guys, I heard people speaking Gothic.
So he wrote down a list of their words, which is the only thing we have today, and then these scumbags forgot their language. So today, amen, rest in peace Gothic and rest in peace Eastern branch of the Germanic languages. You will be missed. Let's go to North Germanic, the group of languages spoken by the Vikings. Who were the Vikings? Well, we can't really say this is the name of a linguistic group. Viking literally means those who lived in the base and who used to bully those who lived in the Northern Islands. This group of languages is also important because most of the old runic inscriptions, which represent the oldest evidence of Germanic languages, come from them. And you have to know that old runic inscriptions are scary. Just think about what a guy decided to carve on a golden horn just to introduce himself and tell us he was the man who had given shape to that masterpiece. Do you know what his assertion sounded like? Prepare your ears.
Ek chlewagastis, holtias horna tawido.
Which means I, Chlewagastis, son of Holt, made the horn. These peoples were actually scary. Some of them left their homeland, Scandinavia, they kicked the of the Celts and of other Germanic peoples and reached remote places like Iceland and Greenland. Yeah, because it was not cold enough in Scandinavia. If you want to refer to the first common language Vikings used to speak before splitting into the modern languages, its name is Old Norse. Apart from the runic inscriptions, we also have interesting manuscripts called sagas, talking about dragons with gastritis or angry people who used to practice human sacrifices. And then Norse split into Eastern Norse and Western Norse. In the former group, there are today's Swedish, Danish, which sounds like the language spoken by a drunk man with a facial paresis and with hiccups. That's what phoneticians call glottal stop. Like the sound I'm using between the two vowels. Ah. And Bokmål, which is like Danish but with Norwegian accent. In the group of Western Norse, we find most of Norwegian dialects and their standardized version called Nynorsk, and then Icelandic, Faroese, and further languages spoken by a few hundreds among people and sheep. If we consider the mutual intelligibility, we can divide the North Germanic languages into continental languages, Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, and insular languages, Icelandic and Faroese.
Northern languages show some specific features.
For example, they keep endings more than other languages do, and this feature landed Vikings, and still today Icelanders, a seductive air of virility. Moreover, these people with lack of vitamin D started inhaling air to say yes, yeah, generating panic in foreigners. During the Middle Ages, the Vikings converted to Christianity and started using the Latin alphabet. Even if you wouldn't say that. Plus a couple of weird letters that are still used today in Iceland. Eth for the sound like in English this, Thorn for the sound of English thank. I use the letter for the smiley as well. It looks much better than P. If you want to use it, just press at the same time Alt key plus 999.
There's also a third branch of the Germanic languages, the one which was more successful, and it's the West Germanic branch.
Here the situation is much more chaotic, because those people mingled with each other more than tribes in other Germanic areas did. As a result, they messed up everything, and today it's kind of hard to reconstruct their early history. One example is the extinct Lombard language. Today we have scholars who think this was an Eastern language. Some others say it was a Western language, but the truth is that they traveled so much that they absorbed elements from languages of different origin. The language that became the lingua franca of the Western world, English, developed originally from the languages spoken by tribes living in continental Europe who moved to the island we call today Great Britain. These peoples were Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. They messed up the vowel system without updating in a proper way the spelling, and voila! Here we are today with things like I heard women laugh Wednesday evening, where you can barely find correspondence between what you write and what you say. Then later, Norse and French raped that pure West Germanic language. This eventually went to North America and to Australia for some scholarships, and the result is...
English belongs to a group of languages of this branch, which is called North Sea Germanic.
In the same group, you can also find other languages. One is Scots, spoken in Scotland, which comes directly from the northern dialects of Old English and has been strongly influenced by Norse in an early stage and then by Standard English. Today, Scots and English are so similar to each other that a lot of people consider the former as an English dialect. Other languages in this group are Frisian and some dialects of northern Germany. Apart from this group, in the western branch there are two further groups. One is often called Low Frankish and includes Dutch, the language you hear in that European capital you visit when you want to smoke joints freely with your friends, even though your mom thinks you're studying Van Gogh's paintings. Psst! You should pronounce Van Gogh! Another language in this group is Afrikaans, brought by Dutch farmers to South Africa during the second half of the 17th century. The third group of the West Germanic languages is the High German group, including today's Standard German and the central and southern dialects of Germany, Switzerland and Austria. This group is to be found in the USA as well, the so-called Pennsylvania German, brought by immigrants 300 years ago and sounds like an American exchange student in Berlin.
Goeie Nacht. Mach's gut. Sehen dich später.
Okay, in this chaos, at least we know that all Germanic languages we have today are written using the Latin alphabet. You forgot about me! Oh gosh, right, we have Yiddish, the language of many Ashkenazi Jews from Central Europe, which belongs to the third group of the Germanic languages, the High German group. And despite its origin, it's written with the Hebrew alphabet.
But why do we distinguish the High German group from the other languages?
Do you remember I told you about the first consonant shift, or erste Lautverschiebung? Well, in the High German languages there was a second consonant shift, because things were too easy before.
Okay guys, this was the second lesson. Next time we'll go deeper into those important consonant changes that are considered one of the first signs of the emergence of Proto-Germanic and that we find still today in all modern Germanic languages. If you start feeling addicted and you need more of my videos, you just have to click on subscribe and on the bell icon in order to receive a notification every time I upload a new video. I'll also leave down in the description the links to my Facebook and Instagram pages and to my other YouTube channel, which is Puglia Tour Guide. That's it for the moment. A strangling hug from Fabio and behave yourselves.